Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Min. The story we are going to tell today, it started from 2014. Can you believe 2014 was like 9 years ago? So much has happened that year. Scotland decided to stick with the UK and the Eurozone was having fluctuations as always. Russia took over Crimea and is now in a bit of a tiff with Ukraine. While Ebola hit West Africa pretty hard. Iran's nuclear program negotiations totally stalled out, and oil prices took a huge hit the first time. Remember this also when Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared. And let's not forget, there was this pre-democracy protest that went down in Hong Kong as well. Oh, and India got a new prime minister, the 14th to be precise. And it was this time when the US and China were pretty cool with each other. Like the presidents were shaking hands and making deals about this climate change. Nothing too significant happened. The economics were good in China, I bet, around that time. As I was in uni back in 2014, I couldn't have a real-life encounter with this economic side of the world. Anyway, the story I'm about to dish out started back in 2014. Like, in just 1 year, this person went from being on top of the world to crashing way down low. His assets grew like crazy, only to disappear in the blink of an eye. It was like some crazy movie, but behind it, all were the struggles of many. Let's go back to the beginning, starting with this person's teenage year. Ding Ning, born in July 1982, had a relatively obscure life before the age of 23, as I can't find any online. However, I did manage to find some information on their family and their early projects. Ding Ning has a little brother named Ding Ning, born in the 87, and the dude looks just like him. So back in 1987, Ding Ning's mom started a little factory called Yanbaishi Selling Factory right in their own neighborhood. Their main hustle was making these railway seals. These seals are like locks that were put on the containers after they are loaded and ready to go. Luckily, making these seals doesn't require any super high-tech skills, making it perfect for a small family-owned factory, which means they were making these seals right in their own home, according to the neighbors in the village. And Ding Ning wasn't exactly a straight-A student. He ended up going to school called the Anhui Vocational College of Industrial and Commerce. And of course, he wasn't exactly thrilled about it and ended up taking a pretty long break. Eventually, he decided to work at his mother's factory. By the time he was just 17, still a minor. But the miracle happened. The factory started doing pretty well after he joined in. Like, really well. Oh well, in fact, the family ended up hiring over 100 people. So back in the early 2000s, Ding Ning's dad bought a piece of land to build a new factory to be able to host all their employees and goods, I guess. The family packed up and moved to this new house in Bengbu City. Ding Ning did all sorts of stuff in their family business, like managing operations and making deliveries. The neighbors remembered him as a friendly and honest kid. Around the year of 2000, the Chinese internet industry was booming with lots of opportunities for growth and innovations. It was a golden age for entrepreneurs. Ding Ning wasn't the best student, but he was a total whiz when it came to using computers and navigating the internet in his early 20s. He totally jumped onto the e-commerce wave and scored some major orders for his family's sealing factory. These orders were like cash cows, bringing in over 3 million yuan in sales revenue and a sweet net profit of 700 grand for the factory. When asked about those times in the media interview, Ding Ning said, quoted, "The hardest part about doing e-commerce back then was just finding an internet cafe, There were only a few in the whole province, and who knows if there were even any in Bangbu City, where we lived. So the concept of these internet cafes. Internet cafes, also known as cyber cafes or net cafes, were establishments where people could pay to access the internet using the computers provided by the cafe. In China, internet cafes gained popularity, especially during the initial stages of widespread internet usage, when not everyone had personal computers at home. These cafes became vibrant social spaces where individuals could gather to surf the internet, play online games, communicate with friends through chat platforms, and engaged in various online activities. Internet cafes provided a convenient way for people to connect to the digital world, particularly for those who didn't have internet access at home. They offered a unique social experience, allowing individuals to interact with others while exploring the vast realms of the internet. Indeed, Ding Ning's early success through the internet marked a turning point in his life. At just 20 years old, when many of his peers were still pursuing their studies, he took on the responsibilities of managing the ceiling factory and became the factory manager. Earning his first bucket of gold at such a young age must have been a significant accomplishment for Ding Ning. This initial success not only brought financial stability to his family's business, but also laid the foundation for his future endeavors. So Ding Ning caught the entrepreneurial bug and tasted success, and now his life is changing big time. Little did he know that this early experience would be the stepping stone to even greater achievements and challenge in the years to come. Dude, in a lot of Asian cultures, doing well in school is super important and has a ton of weight when it comes to these social expectations and success. And the reason for such mindset, I bet many have explained on various videos and posts, so I wouldn't elaborate further in this video, as it all cliché to me and you, I think. But there's a lot of pressure to be a total academic rock star. Like, it can be pretty insane living in the environment like that. And if you don't follow the usual path of getting a higher education, your family and society might start thinking that you are a bit of a weirdo or even a failure. But now I'm grown up, I can say from experience that don't sweat it too much, just do what feels right to you. However, when I saw how chill Ding Ning's family was and how he got to work in their factory instead of going to school, I could admit I was a little jelly as well. I mean, how nice would it be to have that kind of freedom and not have to deal with all this academic stress? But I gotta remind you that everyone's got their own thing going on. Ding Ning found his own way to success, but it doesn't mean that he didn't have to go through some tough stuff to get there, especially considering what eventually happened. We all have our own stories, and it's important to focus on our own goals and values when it comes to making choices in life. Now let's go back to Ding Ning's story and see where his entrepreneurial journey takes him next. The Ding Ning family's expansion into these new industries and the establishment of multiple companies demonstrate their ambition and drive for growth. With the establishment of Yucheng Hardware, the family ventured into the production of screws and can openers, diversifying their product range beyond the ceiling factory. It seems that they were able to secure a substantial amount of capital for this new venture, with a registered capital of 20 million yuan. The formation of an electro-mechanical in collaboration with Gao Junjun, Ding Ning's wife at the time, and his father, further expanded their business interests. This new company likely focused on electro-mechanical stuff, given its name, of course. That's one company under the name of Yucheng that focused on the hardware stuff. Later on, Ding Ning and his younger brother Ding Dian established a new materials technology company, positioning themselves as the national high-tech enterprise. Engaging in research, development, production, and sales of metal surface treatment materials, the company showcased their commitment to technological advancement and innovation. These guys are teaming up with Hefei University of Tech at Metal Surface Treatment Research Center to show they were all about working with schools and swapping know-how. That's truly impressive, and that's the second company under the Yucheng Group. As founding a company is one thing, but they got commitment on the research is another thing that not many other Chinese companies at the time would do. Ding Ning was doubtlessly super smart and had come up with over 10 crazy cool inventions that got patented by the country. It's no wonder that his achievements have garnered admiration from his peers. The Yucheng Group is killing it under Ding Ning's leadership. Not only has he made major moves for himself, but he's also helped out with the issue of unemployment among college grads. The group's been creating jobs and boosting the economy, making a real difference in the community. So Ding Ning got appointed to the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference in Bengbu City at the age of 30. That's pretty cool and shows that he's a big deal in the region, as he gets to be involved in the political and decision-making processes and share his expertise and perspectives with the government. On top of that, he's then a distinguished master's supervisor at Anhui University Finance and Economics. That just to prove that he was a real expert in his field, like with the case of Liu Zhaohua that I once told about, the chemical genius. Both were kind of obsessed with the whole academic and university thing. Be a lecturer from time to time in the university, he can pass on his knowledge and mentor the next generation of professionals. Not sure how much expertise he had brought to the university, but he did gain fame and favors by sponsoring the university. And I think later on though, the university might regret this. So Ding Ning's journey is actually a pretty cool example of how entrepreneurship and innovation can make a real difference in communities and industries. Why he sounds like Elon Musk in a way here. But Elon was already too famous by the time Ding Ning emerged. And of course, Ding Ning was nobody compared to him. But still, he was something in China and pretty inspiring for many. And remember these companies under the name of Yucheng? They were indeed the starting point of their dreams. The companies that he and his family started back then ended up being major sources of cash cow for those financial companies that the family set up later. In July 2015, aged 33, Ding Ning, who had already become the chairman of Yucheng Group's board of directors, I think he used the entrepreneurial function from Joseph Schumpeter and translated to Chinese and said to the media. But now I got to translate that back to English. Called it, if you want to be a very successful entrepreneur, you must have the ability to discover what others cannot see. I myself have felt that there is a life opportunity that arises every 5 to 6 years, and it is crucial to seize that opportunity. Ding Ning went through 5 different career changes in just 16 years. He went from being a college dropout who was in vocational education to selling railway sales online, to manufacturing schools and can openers. Then he started doing metal surface material technology treatment and all this patented stuff. Finally, he got into the financial field and later into this internet finance. Quite a journey, huh? Ding Ning, despite not having a formal education in finance, developed a keen interest in this internet finance. Interestingly, during that time, the Chinese government implemented various tax incentives to attract foreign investment. So the deal was that the state-owned companies started to lose their mojo, and private companies weren't doing so hot either. This caused the industrial economy to start having a bit of a rough time. Witnessing this, Ding Ning started contemplating how to transform his business into a foreign-funded enterprise. In 2012, Ding Ning joined forces with his cousin, Ding Weiwei, who was residing in Australia, to establish a Sino-foreign joint venture. And guess what? That move turned his business into a foreign-funded enterprise. Smart. Ding Ning was seriously on fire. Plus, this whole thing opened up a bunch of doors for this Anhui Yucheng financing leasing company. And remember this Yucheng. This Yucheng group was like investing a bunch of different things. You remember? Like the railway sales, the hardwares, the new material stuff, and patented thing. And with this Yucheng leasing company, Ding Ning was officially in this financial sector game. Ding Ning must have been on top of the world, feeling the flow of cash coming into the company's accounts like a boss, and experiencing the dynamics of the capital pyramid. Sounds like a pretty thrilling experience, is it? Shifting from the challenges of the industrial sector to the realm of finance allowed him to leverage his entrepreneurial skills in a different domain. So factories can make some good money, but let's be honest, finance is where the real cash is at. I remember back in unit, I had this friend who was all about investing in the stock market when she was raking it in. I was super admired, but was kind of scared of that finance stuff. Money was flying in and out so fast, it was like it wasn't even real. But I guess they just enjoying such thrills. It was during this exciting period that Ding Ning crossed paths with Zhang Min, a returnee girl. This encounter likely added an element of romance and personal connection to Ding Ning's journey, adding further intrigue to his story, I hope. And let's not forget that he was married to his ex-wife at the time when he was having an affair with this Zhang Min, the girl, and possibly he was with others as well. According to the available information, Zhang Min, the former CEO of Ezubao, obtained her master's degree from this French university that I cannot pronounce its name because it's in French, of course, in 2001. Zhang Min's career journey was definitely interesting. After coming back to China from her study, he started off as a university teacher. But that didn't last long, and she soon jumped into the corporate world. So in 2006, she joined this American company and got some pretty big roles like the senior assistant to the CEO, executive vice president, head of investor relations, and board secretary. Her job was to take care of investor relations, operations, and financing projects for that company. But then in 2011, things got a little rough for the company. They got delisted in the US because of some lawsuits. Despite this setback, Zhang Min embraced new opportunities and assumed the role of president at an investment management company in Bengbu City. But remember Bengbu City, where Ding Ning and his families were? Over the next few years, Zhang Min's career continued to evolve. She became a senior partner at a Beijing consulting company in 2012, president of an Anhui asset management company in 2013, and general manager of an Anhui Holding Group's Beijing branch in 2014. It was in July 2014 that Ezubao was launched, and Zhang Min took on the position of president within the company. So Zhang Min liked to be called president instead of usual CEO titles they used in the US. So back in the day, you could snag a job at these highfalutin named places like it was a piece of cake. Now, even our government is saying that more than 20% of young people couldn't find a job. It's tough enough to get a job, let alone one of those pyramidal gigs at a top-notch company. What a good time we missed. Anyway, as we keep going, we will find out more about Zhang Min's story and what part she played in everything that went down with Ezubao. Zhang Min's expertise and captivating presence certainly played a role in her recruitment by Ding Ning. With her finance background and knowledge, she brought valuable insights to the team, while according to many interviews they gave at the prime time of Ezubao. So back in the day, Yuebao from Alibaba was all the rage. Jack Ma was a big deal in the internet industry, and everyone in China wanted to be like him. Our guy, Ding Ning, decided to start Ezubao and try to copy that success, but it wasn't easy. See, Alipay had already won our people's trust, so Ezubao had a tough time getting people to believe in them. To overcome this hurdle, Ding Ning made a bold move and invested a substantial amount of 150 million yuan in television advertisements to raise awareness about Ezubao and attract potential customers. And that converted to US dollar will be $24.4 million for them to dump in just 1 year for Ezubao specifically. It was like all of a sudden, everyone was talking about this very brand. Your favorite TV programs, your neighbors, your colleagues, friends, etc. So there's this brand that came out of nowhere and people were like, whoa, what was this? And then it got an endorsement from China Central Television and started advertising everywhere. Like so much that people thought it was like a legit national brand or something. After all, in China, many people believe that CCTV represents the voice of the government, the Chinese Central Television I meant. And we people did believe in the government a lot. Shouldn't use the past tense. Or should I? As things got a bit different nowadays. Nonetheless, at this moment, Ding Ning and Ezubao succeeded with the investments on advertisements and CCTV, and that backfired hard on him as well, of course, later on. At this stage, they attracted just too many investors, and the company often came to TV to break the transaction volume and outstanding amount of all their investments, just to show how big of the platform it was back then. Ding Ning left no stone unturned when it came to promoting Ezubao. And of course, not only the TV ads they did, they made their ads all over people's life. So if you were used to seeing them on TV and then stepping out of your door to catch the bus, you will also see them on public transportation on the streets. And if you travel across town and hop on the subway, to the underground, you think you can avoid them. They were plastered all over the walls, stairs, and elevators you pass on your way to the subway, and of course in the subway too. It was literally, they were everywhere. Through this tactic, Ezubao is hard to remain unnoticed. And let's be honest, with the internet finance industry blowing up like it was, Ezubao hit the jackpot. Ezubao said they were all about financing, leasing, and debt trading, which made them a total standout platform. They crushed their competitors and became a big shot in the industry. As Ezubao, the brand, was rapidly rising, Yucheng Group, the company on its back, also engaged in a frenzied expansion. According to statistics, Yucheng Group alone initiated the establishment of 15 companies, snapping multiple business lines such as financing, leasing, P2P, hotels, and etc. By 2015, the Yucheng Group had over 50 billion yuan in assets, which just goes to show how big and influential they were. So Ding Ning's bank account was filling up faster than a wallet balloon in a hurricane. He became pretty well known at lecturing and cooperating with the School of Finance in Hefei University of Technology and Anhui University of Finance and Economics. Two great universities in China. And remember, he was a dropout of a vocational school. I think maybe us Chinese are mostly wired to believe deep down in the mind that success without a reputation or connection to an academic industry is void. And I know that sounds silly, but that's the case that many famous people do in China. So if they didn't go to fancy universities when they were younger, they would definitely make it up later when they have the cash to do so. Weirdly though, I don't have that obsession. Could be that I'm not famous. Now that Ding Ning and the Yucheng Group were getting super huge and popular, right? But unfortunately, that's what caused all the stuff to go down and ended the brand, Ezubao. But what exactly is this Ezubao? In 2014, during the early stages of its establishment, Zubao ventured into the P2P business, which refers to peer-to-peer lending. Ever since the Zubao popped up in the UK in 2005, P2P lending has been blowing up globally. In 2006, the US Prosper Marketplace started dominating the market with its low interest rates and higher investment returns. After that, the US Lending Club, the UK's Funding Circle, Germany's Ox Money, and Bandura via interest, Mintos in Europe, Japan's Lendi, and South Korea's Lendit all had various levels of success. And in China, its first P2P lending platform, Dai, was launched back in 2007. And since then, the concept of P2P has been blowing up like crazy. In 2013, there were only around 800 P2P platforms across the country. But by 2014, that number has jumped up to 1,613. And by 2015, that would be an incredible 3,858 platforms. At the end of January 2016, there were a total of 3,917 P2P lending platforms in China. But here's the thing, with all that growth, there were also 1,351 platforms that had some serious issues. In contrast, at the time in the US, there were only 100 P2P platforms, and the big dogs were the Lending Club and Prosper Marketplace. Correct me if I'm wrong. So China's P2P lending market went a bit too crazy. Maybe that's because of limited traditional financial options. And as you might expect, this unbridled growth would have some pretty serious consequences. But let me expand a bit on this so-called limitation of the traditional financial options in China. Businesses here had two ways to get cash. One is to get a loan from a bank or a financial institution, and second is to sell shares in the stock market. And let's be honest, small businesses normally couldn't achieve either options above easily, as banks think small companies are too risky and of course wouldn't want to give them money. To the stock market, haven't you seen there are just so many Chinese companies chose to get listed in the US instead of China domestically? There are some reasons for it. but I think I wouldn't go through them as this video is already too long without these explanations. But that's the result. Just put it simple as that it's difficult for business to go public in China. So basically, small businesses are left high and dry without any decent options. That's where P2P lending comes in, trying to fix this whole mess and help small businesses get the financing they need. Ezubao acted as an intermediary, connecting businesses with individual investors. The idea is businesses that need cash will put their project information on Ezubao's website. So Ezubao would display these projects and offered a sweet interest rate to get individuals, ordinary people to invest into these various different projects from different companies. P2P lending is like a shortcut, cutting out the banks and stock market and going straight to individual investors. It was like a financing game changer, right? But the problem being that Ding Ning didn't want to really start a P2P lending platform from the jump. Dude straight up wanted to make a Ponzi scheme. He conned almost 900,000 investors by making up fake companies and promising sweet interest rates. So he ended up getting a total of 70 billion yuan. It's about 11.26 billion US dollar in 2015, the final year of Ezubao. Okay, if you got your hands on this amount of cash, chances are you'll start feeling pretty damn good about yourself. You might even start feeling invincible. At least I would. But I wouldn't be as bold as Ding Ning, I think. I used that filthy amount of money to live it up, spending like 20 billion yuan a month. That's some Brewster's Millions level stuff right there. And Zhang Min was a pretty important person in the company, as she represented the company in at least various ads. So she had some access to see that the whole thing was about to go down the drain. She kept telling Ding Ning to get his act together and fix things before it was too late. But Ding Ning just ignored her. He went all crazy and just started obsessing over finding new dates, buying fancy cars and houses, diamond rings, and all sorts of expensive stuff. So Zhang Min's access wasn't high enough to know that it was just a scam, of course, the whole thing. Ding Ning had never ever thought about how to get the company out of the debt. Back in 2015, Ezubao pulled off one heck of scam and managed to dope a ton of people. They really stood out from the crowd of other P2P companies, and here's why. The heavy advertising. Ezubao dumped a crazy 150 million yuan on national TV ads, all in just 6 months. And I have described how horrible it was to live in the ocean of its ads around that time. The high-end offices. Ezubao rented some really fancy office buildings for its branch offices to look cool and impress people. They were trying to give off the vibe that they were a big deal and totally trustworthy. They got so much money they would be legit. Well, that's the impression they wanted to give people. The moderate interest rates. So unlike those obvious Ponzi schemes that offer crazy high interest rates, Ezubao promised more reasonable rates ranging from 9% to 14.5%. Still a lot though, I guess it accurately hit middle ground between people's greed and fear of risk. So by using these sneaky tactics, Ezubao was able to trick a ton of people in a really short amount of time. Investors thought they were investing in small, legit business, but little did they know that their cash was actually going straight into Ding Ning's pocket. It's crazy to think that Ding Ning blew through an insane 1.5 billion yuan in just 1 year. So around 2015, how would you spend an average of 230 million US dollar monthly? Ding Ning, the mastermind behind Ezubao's shady dealings, went all out to make the company look good and lift it up in style. Showcasing the luxury, Ding Ning was like, "Yo, all you secretaries gotta rock some fancy designer uniforms and bling bling to make our company look fly." So he went on these crazy shopping sprees, like buying out all the Hermes stores in the country and sending people to Europe to buy fancy goods. Generosity to associates. Ding Ning was a seriously generous guy who loved making people around him feel special. Just take a look at how he hooked up Zhang Min, the representative at Yutun Group and a big-time star of TV ads, which they made her to do. He dropped some serious coin on her, shelling out gifts worth 130 million yuan, which we are talking about a sick villa in Singapore, a pink diamond ring that cost 12 million yuan, some luxury rides, and some really expensive watches. According to Zhang Min herself after they all got arrested, she said he hooked them up with goodies that were worth roughly 90 million US dollars. Salary increases and favors. Ding Ning was giving out some pretty sweet perks to people he was tight with. Zhang Min got hooked up with a serious salary bomb, going from 150 grand a month to 250, and all the way up to 500 in Chinese yuan. Of course, yeah, we are not using the US dollars as they got these salaries in China. And Ding Ning's little brother, Ding Dan, went from making 18 grand a month to a totally insane 1 million yuan once he arrived to Beijing, while Ding Ning admitted he was tied with a bunch of female executives in the company, and Zhang Min was just one of the many. Insiders spilled the beans that nobody really knew jack about money in Ezubao. From the big wigs to the grunts, none of them have a clue about finance, investment, or financial management. Some pips thought that the president Zhang Min was just a puppet in the company. When the company was doomed, some investors made a whole chat about how Ding Ning brought on his female executives. Like he might have used these tricks to all his female employees, they said. And of course, his ex-wife divorced him around these years as he was cheating on her with just too many of those pretty employees. Typically, a Ponzi scheme can sustain itself for 3 to 5 years by robbing Peter to pay Paul. But Ding Ning was really living it up with his lavish spending. It caught up to him very quickly. The deal was scamming folks like there was no tomorrow, but he was doing it so poorly in a way that he couldn't even keep up with his own crazy expensive lifestyle. And as you might have guessed, things went south real quick, leading to a major redemption crisis. As I said before though, Ding Ning started Ezubao to scam. So he knew better than anyone that this brand and related companies would be toast as he had planned soon. He knew he had to act fast and transfer all the money out of the country, disappearing like a magician's trick and starting a new life of luxury in another land. Originally, he had planned to move to Europe, America, Japan, South Korea, or Singapore. However, after doing some thorough research, he realized that developed countries weren't exactly welcoming to economic criminals from China, as there's a pretty big chance he will get caught and sent back to China. So Ding Ning activated Plan B and decided to go to northern Myanmar, or Burma. Well, let's use the Myanmar as it's the official name. At Ezubao, there was a special position called the financial planner, who was responsible for attracting users and earning massive profits. If they brought in like 500,000 Chinese yuan, they could earn a commission of 3,000 yuan. And if they bought in 1 million Chinese yuan, the commission would be 5,000 Chinese yuan. On top of that, there were these additional commissions for the team and the leaders, making the total commission amount to 1% of the money they brought into the company. So, quoted, "We went ahead and set up the Southeast Asian United Bank in Southeast Asia, with loads of capital behind us and guarantees for your peace of mind. That's what we are all about here at Ezubao." The financial planners love using that slogan. As this Myanmar bank indeed existed. In the later stages, the Yutun Group went beyond just expanding within the country. The company's official website said the government of this special zone in Myanmar is called the Wa State, gave the thumbs up to them to set up this Yutun Southeast Asian Free Trade Zone. Basically, it's saying that the company Yutun Group would make sure things run smoothly and keep the economy growing in the area. The company went ahead and opened a bunch of this Yutun Southeast Asian United Bank in the Wa State. They claim it's a commercial bank that offers all sorts of financial services like managing cash, corporate loans, financing projects, and handling cross-border finances. There's an interview with this scholar from Yunnan University who is all about this social stuff happening on the Sino-Myanmar border. According to him, the Wa State in the northern Myanmar is a real mess when it comes to politics and economics. They've got issues with ethnic minorities and a notorious history of problems related to drugs. He also mentioned something interesting. The Yutun Group suspiciously bought a piece of land in the Wa State with a significant amount of money. They dropped 80 million Chinese yuan for just 6 acres. The number converted to 12 million US dollars for just 6 acres, which means per acre in Myanmar cost 2 million US dollars. Just to provide some reference, the United States Department of Agriculture has some data saying that in 2016, the average price for agricultural land was around $3,080 US per acre. But just so you know, this number only shows the average price of agricultural land and doesn't include the average price for other kinds of land use. But still, the comparison was insane. Well, before the company actually crashed, of course, they needed to make them look legit and were still running. So, some analysts said that when they added up all the cash they spent on salaries, ads, property, and other expenses, Zubao gotta make sure they were making at least 42% profit, maybe even more, to make sure they could be covered and good to go. Ding Ning, being the mastermind that he was, brainstormed some ideas to make the company look like it was still running good. One of these brilliant thoughts was to buy half-finished buildings. But guess what? That plan went down the drain because negotiations for those distressed assets dragged on for too long, so it wouldn't work as he hoped. Then another so-called expert came up with a genius suggestion. You know, there are two industries that rake in returns of over 50%. Yup, you heard me right. One is the arms trade. It's got a conservative return rate of 100 to 200%. The other is the good old drug trafficking business, which boasts a conservative return rate of 200 to 400%. Ding Ning chose to go all in on this arms trade. If he had chosen the drug dealing, he would have likely faced the death penalty in the end of the story. He set up shop in the development zone in Myanmar, making it seem all legit with visible development activities. But behind the scenes, he was secretly involved in the arms trade. Ding Ning had his eyes set on this Wa State in Myanmar for a pretty special reason. This place is one of a kind. The Wa State is all snuggled up between 3 countries. China, Thailand, and Laos. It's massive, covering a whopping 160,800 square kilometers and has a population of over 8 million. It's like the big boss among all the states and regions in Myanmar. The Wa State and the Konkan region are like these super autonomous areas within Shan State in northeastern Myanmar, right on the border with China. Konkan's up in the north, while Wa State takes the southern spotlight. And you know what? China's got its fingerprints all over these regions, like they are besties, at least that's the case in the past, at that time. But here's the flip side. Konkan and Wa State have been dealing with some serious troubles for a while now, which are gambling and drugs. It's been real headache for countries though, not something we will discuss in this video either. Let's go back to Ding Ning. Back in February 2016, the media spilled the beans that Ding Ning had bought himself a fancy title, calling himself a commander-in-chief in Myanmar. And word on the street is that a big chunk of his cash flow ended up being invested in Myanmar. On Ding Ning's rumored business cards circulating on the internet, the title, Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, is prominently displayed. Right, I've got some juicy deeds about Ding Ning and his Myanmar adventure for you. There's this armed group called the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, the MNDAA, also known as the Konkan National Democratic Alliance Army. They are led by none other than this person, a dude also known as the King of Konkan. Sounds pretty epic, right? Here's where it gets interesting. Ding Ning somehow got involved with these military guys, and things started going bonkers for him in Myanmar. His Yutan group became the top dog when it comes to foreign investors in the Wa State of Myanmar. That's some serious clout. But we can't quite pin down Ding Ning's exact role in Myanmar. It's all shrouded in mystery. What we do know is that both the Yutan group and Ezubao dabbled in loads of investment projects in Myanmar. So there's this article from NetEast Finance that came out on the 17th of December 2015 called The Yutan Group's Crazy Business. Employees smuggling into Myanmar to expand operations. It basically spills the tea on how much power that Yutan Group had over in Myanmar. Back in May 2015, the Yutan Group made some big investments. They set up shops in Myanmar's second special region and dropped the Southeast Asian United Bank like it's hot. And that's not all. They went ahead and established the Yutan Southeast Asia Free Trade Zone, where they had all the administrative management rights. Then they even ventured into the media business in Wa State. They launched Wa State Television and Wa State Cable Television under the umbrella of Wa State Media. They were all about making their mark in the broadcasting world. Now here's the real insider scoop. According to someone in the know from the Yutan Group, they've got themselves 6,000 square kilometers free trade zone over there. And you know what they say? It's all in line with the Maritime Silk Road project the Chinese government held since 2013. The real reason they chose Wa State is because it's like a cakewalk to operate there. The folks in Wa State gave them crazy authorities, like they can do whatever they please. One brave soul spilled the beans and revealed that the Yutan Group had actually planned to team up with Cambodia at some point as well. And there's the tea from a former Yutan Group employee who had a taste of this Myanmar action. They told NetEast Finance, confirming that the group had a major stronghold in Wa State, monopolized the real estate game over there. To make their dreams come true in Yutan Southeast Asia Free Trade Zone, the Yucheng Group recruited a whole bunch of employees straight from China. They were assembling a powerhouse team. However, starting from the 26th of October 2015, the Yucheng Group was unable to process entry permits for the recruited employees, so they could only smuggle into Myanmar. The team. Some employees who were afraid to smuggle ended up stranded in Yunnan province. The border province. According to someone in the industry after the collapse of the Yucheng Group, discussing Yucheng in one state became a really sensitive topic. On the streets not far from the border, the signboard of Southeast Asian United Bank is still prominently displayed. The recently started One State News building, which was constructed with assistance from Yucheng Group, has been completely abandoned. In Ding Ning's WeChat Moments, which is his social media feed, you can still see images of this first group of armed Yucheng securities employees stationed there. The Wa state government had high hopes for Yucheng's arrival and even granted them administrative power in the free trade zone. However, in the end, they had to raise over 10 million yuan themselves to cover Yucheng's unpaid projects expenses and workers' wages. As for their once close friend, Ding Ning, the young man from a small town in northern Anhui, China, he only carried a Myanmar nationality and had disappeared without a trace. Obviously, he went to a prison in China. Thinking he had arranged a good retreat plan, Ding Ning believed he was worry-free and he was just waiting for Ezubao to collapse. However, the wheels of justice turn relentlessly, and no gaps are left unchecked. Ding Ning was usually high profile, had already attracted the attention of Economic Investigation Department in China. Even before Ezubao completely collapsed, law enforcement agencies across the country took decisive action, catching Ding Ning off guard. Not to mention northern Myanmar, he couldn't even leave northern Anhui province and fall into the hands of the law. So here's the lowdown on the verdicts. We've got the defendants Anhui Yucheng Holding Group, Yucheng International Holdings Limited, the Yucheng Group companies that they were operating with. Ding Ning, Ding Dian, Zhang Min, and a bunch of other individuals. They've been found guilty of fundraising fraud and illegally snatching up public deposits. So the companies mentioned in the verdicts were fined a total of 1.903 billion yuan, while the brothers, who were the masterminds behind the scenes, got life imprisonment as punishment for their illegal fundraising activities. Fun fact, the death penalty for fundraising fraud was taken off the table in 2015 amendment to the criminal law, and they were caught right after the amendment, otherwise they could have faced the death penalty. All the executive level staff were caught in this Ezubao company, and even the chief human resources officer of that Yucheng group also got caught up in the punishment, which is quite rare, human resource, as it's a Ponzi, and the investors, like we said, were quite a lot. The authorities have already seized a bunch of stuff like funds, equity, properties, vehicles, gold, and jade. The Gov was working on recovering the stolen assets and compensating the victims. They, the government, was gonna try to give back whatever it could to the people who got scammed. But that's not easy. But not all victims got paid, as not all the money spent by Ding Ning could be traced back. Let's look back to the case. The money they had illegally obtained was significant, right? But there were way too many P2P companies emerged around 2014. Why did Ezubao got so successful? they got to profoundly thank the CCTV, China's central television. So after the Ponzi scheme went burst, people went quick to point fingers at CCTV, the television. They felt that the national television network wasn't doing its part by promoting ads for these sketchy businesses. And because of this, many folks thought that Ezubao was legit since they saw it advertised on this particular TV. Little did they know that they were being scammed by a financial institution that wasn't even legit. And actually, the national television network has been in various scandals like this. So the public just getting bored and numbed about these so-called official sources, since it's happened over and over again. And I meant not only these advertisements, but also some news. No political content here in my video. So I want to talk about some interesting links between these P2P companies and the Bitcoins. Remember we said during Ding Ning's case that he was going to trade weapons for big interest rates. In the latest stage of the P2P market, when was around 2018, the companies in P2P were looking to join the market of the cryptocurrencies, trading off market. At that time, China's cryptocurrency market was a typical Ponzi scheme. If there's even a halfway decent business plan for using cryptocurrencies in China, a trading platform for those virtual currencies can be set up. Then the folks in charge could bring in a bunch of helpers, like aka staff members, and create a ton of WeChat and QQ groups to recruit hundreds of people, if not thousands, of course. So these sneaky scammers would convince most of the folks in their online groups to send over lots of real money for crypto trading. The process was like you buy legit cryptocurrencies like USDT, BTC, ETH, and swap them out for their tokens. So as you trade, you might see like a 1 USDT for 100 of their tokens turn into 5 USDT for 100 of their tokens. Something like that. It kind of tricks you into thinking you can cash out your either USDT or Bitcoin or whatever the back ones whenever you want by watching the prices go up and then bailing out of the market. They could be very persuasive and even role-played to let people believe that it was all legit. Among those recruited individuals, the majority were aware of and implicitly accepted that it was a Ponzi scheme, treating it as a gambling game where you hoped to be faster and leave earlier than others. But there were a few people who actually believed in these so-called projects. They got screwed big time because they invested a lot of money in these scams. Some even borrowed money or used their investments as collateral and ended up in a really bad financial situation. That's why it makes sense for the Chinese government to say nope to all cryptocurrency trading, just like they did with this P2P lending thing. And you know what? When I heard of this FTX incident, it sounds just like what had happened here in China years ago. It's just that they have a lot of fancy sayings for the means they use, but at the core, it's similar. Getting people's money and enjoying their lives. So when you are thinking about investment or anything, might as well consider this sentence I made ChatGPT to give. When others are excited about the gains, it's best to stay cool, or you might find yourself breaking out in a cold sweat. Thanks for watching, and subscribe so I can see you in my next video. Bye. 现在捣乱呢，还是可以吃饭了？那来了，那你早说呀，那我去吃就好了。